She was always the quiet one in the back of the class, never raised her hand, never joined the loud groups. She sat with her books, eyes down, ears full of thoughts no one ever heard. Some students said she was strange, others just ignored her. No one really asked why she looked so tired all the time, or why she never smiled during lunch. At home, things weren't easy either. Her parents barely spoke to each other anymore. Money was always tight, fights came often, and laughter felt like something from a faraway place. Her room was the only space where she felt safe. She would sit on the edge of her bed with her old, scratched-up guitar and hum tunes that had no words yet, but carried all her feelings. She didn't sing loud, not even to herself, just enough to keep the tears from falling. That was her secret. When the world became too heavy, music helped her breathe again. She had no fancy equipment, just a broken mic that barely worked, a voice full of emotion she kept hidden from everyone. At school, most people didn't notice her. The few that did laughed behind her back. Some made jokes about her clothes too plain, too cheap. Others whispered about how she talked too slow, too soft. When she walked through the hallway, she often heard giggles that weren't kind. But she had learned to stay silent. Words never helped her before, so she kept them to herself. But even in the middle of all that silence, her heart held a melody. It was slow, deep, and painful. A song that hadn't been written yet, but lived inside her. Each time someone laughed at her or called her weird, a new note added itself to that hidden song. One rainy afternoon, she passed by the school's music room. No one was inside. The lights were dim, and the air smelled like old wood and sheet music. She stepped in quietly, as if walking into a dream. Her fingers touched the piano keys gently, testing them one by one. Then she sang a line. Just one, soft, unsure, but full of truth. She didn't know someone had seen her later that week. A few students began whispering again. One of them had recorded a video of her that day, just a small clip of her singing alone. They shared it in their private group chat, laughing at how strange she looked, how quiet her voice was. She saw it by accident. Her heart dropped. She ran to the bathroom and locked herself inside. Her body shook and her eyes burned. All she had wanted was a place to feel like herself, and even that had been taken. The next day, she stayed home, said she was sick. But the truth was, her heart had broken a little more. She almost gave up on music that week. She didn't touch her guitar, didn't hum a single note. The world felt cold. Even her room once, full of songs and dreams, felt silent. But something strange happened. After a few nights of crying into her pillow, she looked at her broken mic again. Her hands reached for the guitar like they had a mind of their own. She strummed a chord, then another. And suddenly, the pain she had tried to hide came pouring out in a melody that even surprised her. It was raw. It was real. It was the beginning of a song that would one day make people stop and listen, not because it was perfect, but because it was true. And truth has a sound that even laughter can't hide forever. The school music room was supposed to be a safe space. A place where students could create, explore, and be themselves. But for her, it turned into something else. A place of pain. After that short video of her singing had been shared, things got worse. People stared at her in the halls. Some snickered. As she walked by, others made quiet comments when she entered a room. One day during lunch, she tried to sit in the back corner of the cafeteria. A few students at a nearby table looked at her, laughed, and started humming the melody she sang. In the music room, they mocked her voice, pretending to sing in a shaky, silly way. Her hands froze on her lunch tray. Her throat felt tight. She didn't say anything. She just got up, walked out, and didn't come back for the rest of the day. It wasn't just the students. Even some teachers didn't notice what was happening. They saw a quiet girl keeping to herself and assumed everything was fine. No one saw how heavy her backpack had become, not just with books, but with fear, shame, and loneliness. But she still had her music. Late at night, when the world was quiet and her parents had fallen asleep, she sat in her small room with the lights dimmed. Her guitar rested on her lap, and her eyes stayed closed as she sang softly. The song she was writing slowly began to grow. It wasn't just about sadness anymore. It was about surviving. It's about still standing even when everything inside her wanted to fall. She poured all her pain into that song, the bullying, the laughter, the isolation. Each word came straight from her heart. She didn't know if anyone would ever hear it. She just needed to get it out. She wrote the lyrics on old paper torn from a notebook, scribbled verses, scratched out lines, new ideas forming night after night. Then one day, something unexpected happened. While walking through the hallway on her way to class, she dropped one of her notebooks. Papers flew everywhere. Some students passed by, stepping over the mess. A few laughed, like always.
Ow.
But one man stopped a music teacher who was new to the school. He knelt down and helped her pick up the pages. As he handed them to her, he noticed one with the song lyrics. He looked at the paper, then looked at her. "Did you write this?" he asked gently. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. He smiled kindly. "These words, they're powerful. Would you ever let me hear it?" At first, she hesitated. But something about his voice felt different. He didn't sound like he was waiting to laugh. Sounded like someone who actually cared. A few days later, she met him after school in the music room. It was quiet. No crowd. No noise, just her and the teacher. She sat down, held her guitar, and played the song, still nervous, still unsure. Her voice trembled in the beginning, but as the song went on, something in her changed. She sang louder. When she finished, the teacher said nothing for a moment. His eyes looked a little wet. "That's not just a song," he said softly. "That's a story the world needs to hear." For the first time in a long while, she smiled just a little. Someone had finally listened. Without laughing, and that small moment gave her the strength to dream again. Even though the teacher believed in her, the fear inside her hadn't disappeared. She still felt small every time she walked through the school gates. Whispers still followed her. Some students called her the crying singer. Others made fun of her song like it was a joke. But something inside her had started to change something. Quiet, but strong. She kept working on her song after school, meeting the music teacher once or twice a week. They sat in the music room, just the two of them. No judgment, no teasing, just music. The teacher helped her shape the song clean. Up the chords, sharpen the lyrics, find the right rhythm. But he never changed the meaning. It stayed hers. Each time she sang, her voice grew more steady. And even though she still felt nervous, she started to believe just a little that maybe her voice had something worth sharing. One evening, while waiting for her bus after school, she overheard two girls talking behind her. She's still doing that sad song thing. Why doesn't she just stop? They giggled, then walked away. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry this time. She just pulled her bag tighter and looked up at the sky. It was cloudy, but there was still a little light breaking through. That night at home, she stood in front of her mirror with her guitar. She played the full song, pretending there was a crowd in front of her. She imagined the stage, the lights, the silence before the first note. Her reflection stared back, tired, unsure, but no longer afraid to be seen. One day, during music class, the teacher made an announcement. There's going to be a talent show next month. If anyone wants to perform, sign-up sheets are outside the office. Her heart skipped a beat. The idea of singing in front of the whole school scared her more than anything. What if they laughed again? What if they booed her? But then she remembered something the teacher had said after one of their sessions. Real songs come from real feelings. Someone laughs at your pain, it means they never understood it. But someone else will. Someone always does. That night, she stayed awake thinking about it. The song she had written wasn't just for her anymore. It was for anyone who ever felt broken. For anyone who had cried alone, like she had. Maybe it was time. The next morning her hands were shaking. As she walked toward the office, the sign-up sheet was taped to the door. Names were already on it, kids who danced, played guitar, did stand-up comedy. Her hand hovered over the paper. She held her pen tightly, heart racing. Then, in small letters, she wrote her name. She walked away quickly, not looking back. For the next few weeks, she practiced every night. Her parents still didn't know much about it. They were busy, tired from work, always dealing with bills and other problems. But she didn't mind. This was her journey, her healing. Her voice. The teacher helped her rehearse in the empty music room after school. She tried different versions of the song, faster, slower, louder, softer. In the end, she chose the one that felt the most honest. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. One afternoon after practice, the teacher looked at her and said, "You ready?" She nodded. But inside, the nerves were loud. Still, she was going to do it. She had been silent too long. She had let others define her for too long. Now, she was going to sing her truth, no matter who laughed. The talent show was only a week away now. Posters were up in the school hallways. Students talked about who was performing, who might win, and what to expect. Some were excited, some just wanted to laugh. Some, like her, were quietly getting ready, trying to ignore the noise around them. She walked through the corridors, feeling the stares. A few students whispered as she passed, "Is she really going to sing? I heard it's that same sad song again. She's so weird." But she kept walking, head down, but heart slowly rising. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her voice would speak for her soon. In the music room, the teacher had set up a small stage for practice. A single mic stood in the middle. She stepped up, holding her guitar, hands cold with nerves. She looked at the empty chairs, took a breath, and started to sing. This time, she didn't stumble on the first line. Her voice came out soft, but clear. The lyrics, full of pain and truth, flowed like they had always lived inside her. The teacher stood in the back, arms crossed, listening with quiet pride. When she finished, he smiled. "You ready?" he said again. But deep down, she wasn't sure. Her stomach turned every time she thought about that gym full of people. What if her voice cracked? What if someone shouted at her from the crowd? What if they laughed again? The night before the talent show, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her guitar rested beside her, and the open notebook with her lyrics lay on her pillow. She read the words again and again. Every line was part of her story. It's not made up, not copied. It's just her truth. She sat up, pulled the guitar into her lap, and sang the song one more time. The room was dark, except for a small light near her desk. Her voice filled the space, not loud, but enough to chase the silence away. When she finished, her eyes were wet. She wasn't crying because she was scared. She was crying because she knew she had already won something. The next day came fast. Students buzzed with energy as the gym was set up for the talent show. Chairs were lined up, lights were tested, and the sound system was checked. Teachers stood by, holding clipboards and checking the list of performers. She sat backstage, guitar in hand, knees bouncing nervously. Around her, other students talked, laughed, stretched, and got ready. Some ignored her, some looked at her like she didn't belong. But one or two gave her a small smile. The show began. The crowd clapped and cheered as each act performed. A dance group jumped across the stage. A boy played the drums. Another girl sang a fast, happy pop song that made everyone clap along. Then, it was her turn. Her name was called. The lights dimmed. She stood up slowly, heart pounding. She walked to the center of the stage, where the mic stood waiting. The crowd quieted. Some students leaned forward, curious. Others rolled their eyes, ready to joke. She looked out at all of them, her guitar in her hands, and took a deep breath. And then, she began to sing. The first note filled the gym. Like a quiet wind, the same voice they had laughed at before now carried something different. It carried her truth. And as the song continued, something unexpected began to happen in the crowd. No one was laughing as she stood on stage with the spotlight shining down. Time felt slow. Her fingers gently strummed the guitar, and her voice, soft but steady, filled the air. The gym, which was full of noise only minutes before, had gone silent. Not even a whisper at first. She didn't look up. Her eyes stayed closed. She sang from a place deep inside her, a place filled with sadness, with memories, with every moment. She had been laughed at, ignored, or hurt. Her song was not loud, but every word carried weight. It was her story. and she was finally telling it in front of the very people who never saw her before. The students in the audience sat still. Some leaned forward, expecting her to mess up. Others just stared, surprised at what they were hearing. Slowly, the mood started to shift. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't stop. The emotion in her song was real, and even those who didn't like her could feel it. A few students in the front row looked at each other quietly. This wasn't what they expected. They thought they would laugh. They thought it would be awkward or strange. But something about her voice made them sit still. It didn't sound like the other singers before her. It didn't sound like a performance. It sounded like someone was speaking straight from the heart. Halfway through the song, she finally opened her eyes and looked at the crowd. She saw them clearly now. The ones who had laughed, the ones who had recorded her, the ones who had looked through her like she didn't exist. But she didn't feel fear anymore. She kept singing, and when she reached the last part of the song, her voice grew stronger. It rose not in volume, but in feeling. Pain, the healing, the courage, it all came through in those final lines. It was the sound of someone who had been broken but didn't stay broken. When the last note faded, there was silence again, a long, heavy silence. Then someone in the back stood up and clapped once. Then again, and slowly, others joined in. Hands clapped together, not loudly at first, but enough to echo through the gym. Some students were still frozen, unsure of how to react, but others had tears in their eyes. Even a teacher sitting near the front wiped his cheek quickly and looked away. She stepped back from the mic, guitar still in hand, heart still racing. Her eyes scanned the room again, and for the first time, no one was laughing. She walked off the stage quietly, not waiting for cheers or applause. That wasn't why she sang. She didn't want attention. She just wanted to be heard. Backstage, a few students moved aside as she passed. They looked at her differently now, not with mockery, but with respect. One girl whispered, "That was really beautiful." She gave a small nod, too overwhelmed to speak. She sat alone for a moment in the hallway, away from the crowd, guitar resting on her lap. Her hands were still shaking. But inside, something felt calm. A storm had passed, and she had made it through. Later, that evening, when she got home, she found her notebook and opened to the first page of her song. Her fingers traced over the words, the same ones she had written during her hardest nights. She smiled softly. It was no longer just a sad song. It was her strength, and now they all knew. The days after the talent show felt different. The hallways that once felt cold and cruel now felt quiet. Not silent in a bad way, just more still, like something had changed. And it had. She walked into school with her usual bag, her notebook, and her guitar case. But this time, there were no whispers behind her, no mocking looks. Some students glanced at her, then quickly looked away like they were ashamed. Others gave her small, respectful nods. A few even smiled. It was strange. She had spent so much time feeling invisible or unwanted. Now people were seeing her, not because she changed who she was. They were finally seeing the version of her that had always been there, just quiet, just hidden. During lunch, she sat at her usual table in the corner, alone but at peace. She opened her notebook and wrote down a few new lines. Her mind was already shaping her next song. This one wasn't about pain. It was about rising, about healing, about facing the people who once pushed her down and standing. Taller anyway, a girl from her class walked up to her table and stood there awkwardly. "Hey," the girl said. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for laughing before. I didn't know you were going through stuff." She looked up, surprised. She didn't know what to say at first. "It's okay," she finally whispered. "I wasn't doing it for you." The girl nodded, a little embarrassed, and walked away. But it didn't feel cruel. It felt honest. And that was enough. Later that week, the video of her performance was uploaded to the school's website. At first, she was nervous. She didn't want to go through what had happened before, mocking, sharing clips to laugh at her. But this time was different. People left kind comments. This gave me chills. She's got a beautiful voice. I didn't expect that at all. Even students from other schools started watching. One local music blog shared the video with the title, "Raw Talent from the Quiet Corners of the Classroom." She didn't chase attention, but somehow it found her anyway. One afternoon, her music teacher called her into the room after class. He had a proud smile on his face. "You've done something rare," he said. "You made people feel something real." He handed her a small flyer. It was for a youth music showcase happening in the city. Said they were looking for young original artists. "You should apply," he told her. "Your voice has something that can't be taught." She looked at the flyer for a long time after he left. Her fingers ran over the paper. She didn't know if she was ready for something bigger, but part of her wanted to try. That night, she told her parents about the show. They were surprised mostly because they hadn't known how serious her music had become. Her father looked at her eyes, tired but kind. "I didn't know you had this in you," he said. "I didn't either," she replied softly. Her mother nodded. "If it makes you happy, we'll support you." It was the first time in a long time she felt truly understood. At home, she filled out the application form, loaded her video, and sent it in. Whether she got picked or not didn't matter. What mattered was that she had finally found her voice. And it wasn't small. It wasn't weak. It was full of heart. Her voice had once been something people laughed at now. It was something they remembered. Weeks passed. She waited quietly, not expecting much from the music showcase she had applied to. Life slowly returned to its usual pace. She still wrote songs in her notebook, still practiced with her guitar every evening, and still walked through the school halls quietly. But inside, something had changed. She no longer walked with her head down. She walked like someone who knew her worth. Then one afternoon, while she was sitting alone under a tree near the school fence, her phone buzzed. It was an email. She read it once. Then again, her heart started beating fast. She had been selected. Her performance video had moved the judges, and she was invited to sing her original song at the city's youth music showcase. It wasn't a big show with cameras and lights everywhere, but it was real. A stage, a crowd, a chance to be heard outside the walls of her school. She stared at the message in shock, then slowly she smiled. The music teacher was the first person, she told. He was thrilled, but not surprised. "I knew they'd see what I saw," he said proudly. The day of the event came. Her parents drove her to the small city theater where the show was happening. She sat quietly in the back seat, guitar case resting on her lap. Her parents didn't say much during the ride, but their presence meant everything. When they arrived, she checked in, got her number, and waited backstage with other performers. Some looked confident, others nervous like her. She didn't talk much. She just sat with her guitar, eyes on the floor, softly humming her song to keep herself calm. Her turn finally came. The lights weren't as bright as they were at the school talent show. The stage was smaller, the audience more serious. But somehow, she didn't feel as scared this time. She stepped up to the mic, adjusted the strap on her guitar, and began to play. Her voice filled the room just like before. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it was full of something no one could fake: honesty. People listened. Really listened. When she finished, there was a pause. Slow applause. Steady. Warm. A few people even stood up. After the show, some of the judges approached her. "Your song has heart," one said. "That's rare." "You don't just sing," said another. "You make people feel something." She didn't know what to say. She just smiled and thanked them softly. Later, as she walked out of the building with her parents, the air felt lighter. Her parents looked at her with a kind of pride she hadn't seen before. "You were amazing," her father said. Her mother nodded. "I'm glad the world got to hear your voice." Back at school the next day, news had already spread. Her performance had been posted on the event's website. Some students watched it. Some who had once made fun of her now looked down when she passed. Others quietly said things like, "You did good," or "Your song, it stayed in my head." She didn't hold anger in her heart. She didn't need to. The past was still there, but she had moved beyond it. What mattered now was that she had found something real. Her voice, her strength, her story. The girl they once laughed at had become someone they couldn't forget. Because of fame, not because of awards, but because she dared to stand on a stage, sing her pain out loud, turn it into something beautiful. And in the end, her song didn't just silence the laughter, it turned it into respect.